high up the cassette, so you were actually getting your easier gear. The high screw works the same, but sort of in reverse. So
Sure.
all you do is first of all set the high screw.
High and low screws.
Just pedal the bike and find which one is the high one. This one. So what I do is I just start screwing the high one until the bike's starting to change itself here. Because the high line screw is getting wound in, so you know if you keep screwing this thing in,
Sure.
we've managed to change gear without pushing the shifter, so we just turn the screw in. So we want it really that the screws at the point. Basically, what I do is turn it until we're about to change gear, and then kind of go back like a half turn or so. And then you can check that it will fall back down by just pushing the mech away. Pedal on the bike, push the mech away, and check that it falls back down. That's a bit slow, so we'll just go
Just returning your high screw.
Yeah, this is all just a high screw to there. So that's fine for just now. And then the low screw. So we can't get all the way up to the top on this one because the B screw needs adjusted first. So the B screw controls
Right.
how far from the cassette this top jockey wheel sits. Not every mech has a B screw.
Sure.
So on this one, we'll screw it in a wee bit. And this also has the effect of like the chain's now under tension if you take this all the way back out. So the chain kind of
Alright.
drops.
Drops as well, aye.
It's not intended to be used to like check up chain tension. If the chain tension's too low, it's perhaps because the chain's too long, or the mech cage perhaps isn't long enough. Like there's something not quite right. You can use it a little bit, I guess, to do like a little bit of chain tension adjustment, but its purpose is really to make sure that this jockey wheel clears the cassette sprockets.
Sure.
So we'll dial it in a wee bit. And then see. You can see there, so we're in like the easiest gear, right, just now. But if I push on the low shifter, you see that next, I want to move further up.
Yeah.
So there's potential if I'm pedaling along and I just like push this as far as it goes, that neck's going to throw the chain over the top.
Ah, right, got
So
you.
now what we want to do is just dial in the low limit screw until you'll kind of feel it stop turning, and that's when it's just contacted the mech and no more.
Sure.
And now when we go back up here, you can push this, but nothing's happening back there. So the mech's now firmly locked against that low limit screw, and as long as the mech hanger doesn't get bent in the way or nobody tampers with the low limit screw, that chain can't just jump off the top of the cassette.
Yeah.
It's locked in place. So now you can check our indexing and check that we set the B-tension screw right. So B-tension screw, there's that, just now when we're shifting from this sprocket to the next one, there's that kind of sound
Sure.
there. And what that means is that the actual plastic teeth on the jockey wheel are contacting the cassette, so we just need to go a wee bit more with the B screw just to lift this down ever so slightly.
Away for the two cogs rubbing.
Yep, pretty much. So if we can now. Do that. So now it's gone, that kind of,
That rubbing with the two cogs.
yeah, it's gone, we're not getting anymore.
Are we now?
Yeah, so that's probably adequate B gap. I mean, most of the time it's between like say 5 and 10 mil at most. Some of the cassettes that I've got like a big monster, like a big 50 tooth cassette, they now come with like a little plastic gauge. Yeah. Like the SRAM Eagle stuff, so Eagle's what SRAM call like the 12-speed mountain bike stuff. The idea of this is it's got like kind of wee plastic cog silhouettes there, and this is meant to be the cassette.
Sure.
All you do is you just drop that in the back and line them up. You just keep turning the screw in until your jockey wheel teeth line up with these teeth, and these teeth here line up with the cassette. So their mountain bikes have one, and then their road bikes have like 3 or 4, depending on what size cassette you're on. But they only
Mhm.
work on their 12-speed stuff, so it won't. This doesn't mean anything on this bike. I mean, it might roughly match up. Are we? No, we're nowhere near it. So yeah, these ones you would just kind of do by listening out for the noise and seeing how smoothly the gears change between it.
Mhm.
Shimano don't make anything like this. They just rely on what they do. Although it doesn't have anything, so wouldn't worry about it. So the high limit screw is fine. The low limit screw is fine. The B screw is fine again. Last thing to do then is just check the cable tension, because the cable tension will control when you click it up there what it actually does back here.
Mhm.
So if we shift down one, it's kind of let me jump a little bit. So obviously the bottom side, but it's kind of clicking away.
Yeah.
If you very lightly push the upshift, as if you're going to change gear, and it goes away, it means it needs to up the cable tension. So you can unscrew the valve adjuster up here a little bit. And
Okay.
what this does is it will, similar to like how these little things work,
Mhm.
it just very slightly moves this mech further up. So now when we change between them, it's dead silent. We don't have that noise anymore.
Yeah.
It's perfect. That one more. Keep going. Keep going. I mean, once you've got the first two, it's going to be fine the rest of the way because the spacing is the same between them all. But it's good practice with the chest anyway. And then if you've gone up, you now just need to check that it's the same coming back down. There you are. If it didn't come back down, so like say it went up okay but it didn't come back down, it could be that we've put too much cable tension on it, so we can screw this in a wee bit and you'll find that sweet spot between it being not too high and not too low. If you just can't get it to either go up or down, so you can get it to shift up say, but you can't get it to shift down, or you can have it shift down but not shift up, it's probably a bed hanger.
Mhm.
Because that's usually a symptom of that, is you can get it to go one way fine but not the other way. And if you've checked the
And that means it'll never be in line, I take it.
because there was been something somewhere set squint, and all this relies on everything being perfectly. I
Mhm.
mean, within reason, like there's a little bit of tolerance, but the more sprockets they add, the more it relies on it all being perfectly in line. Yours has got much more scope for kind of things being knocked out of alignment because it's like 7-speed or 8-speed, so the tolerances are not as tight. So for like a commuter bike that's maybe been like tossed on a train and all sorts, that's quite good. You toss these on a train and everything has to be like much finer. It's going to get bumped on a rack and something and it stops working. So yeah, pretty happy with that.
Definitely.
Last thing to do would just be cut this and put a wee cap on it.
I've got a cap here and that
Okay.
recently. Um,
The inner cable, so gear cable's made up of 2 parts. There's the inner cable, which is a silver bit that runs inside it, and there's the outer cable, which is the black bit. Sometimes these won't cut through that.
Right.
They're not strong enough. The construction of this is like a plastic outer coating, and then there's like
Oh,
a
yeah, it's
metal
good.
spiral
Yeah.
inside it,
Mhm.
and then a kind of polymer inner sheath. They just don't have the oomph to cut through them. You need like these are Bowden jaws because the jaws are bowed, whereas these are straight.
yeah.
So those ones will like cut through that. These ones won't. But these will also just cut through that. They're easy, so most bike shops just have these.
Sure.
I generally just open like 2 fingers, 10mm or so of cable. You don't need it like the way out here because
Mhm.
you don't need heaps of. So cut it.
Simple as that. Just cut it.
Yep. And then
There's
show
your
you the end
retainer.
cap
I can't play.
just to stop it. Some of these will have like a wee kind of notch inside for just kind of squeezing that on.
I do just
So yeah, you just basically crush it on.
crush it and squeeze
Yeah.
of course.
And then that's
Oh.
it. It's just all that does is it just stops these ends from fraying off,
Mhm.
and just kind of neatens it up.
I take it you've got a cable that's frayed at the ends, then that cable's no good at that point. You can never fix that. You'd be better just snipping it if it can be used for another bike, fair dues, but if
You
it
can-
can't.
Yeah, you might find like I've seen some people like kind of just grabbing it and twisting it, and it'll kind of maybe try and close up the strands. But if all the strands are like poking off in all directions, yeah, just cut it. If you've got enough excess, you can just cut it and you can put another cap on it.
Mhm.
If it's like fraying away back here, you just cut it and put a new cable on.
Sure.
I would always replace the inner and the outer together
Mhm.
because they work as a system. If this is like corroded, then the inside of this is going to be
Oh,
corroded as
definitely.
well. So I wouldn't just. Some folk will like say that they'll flush out the outer cable by
Mhm.
like putting WD-40 or something or GT85 something similar. Just buy new stuff. It'll just work a hell of a lot better rather than you spending like £6 on a cable and all that time fitting it going still pretty rubbish because this is full of gunk and you're trying to drag this
Aye.
through. Try to like basically drag that through a tunnel that's full of roadblocks. It's not going to work very well
Mm.
for the cost of this. I mean, like it's not.
£6 though.
Aye.
That's on eBay. You can buy the cables dirt cheap.
Yeah,
Mm.
so they're not expensive, so just do the full thing from start to finish. And I mean, this before you put it in, what you could do is like put that like a wee bit of grease or something on this to push it through, because not all the outer cables come greased. The more expensive stuff comes pre-greased.
Mhm.
The lower stuff at £6 might not be greased, but there's nothing stopping you just putting a bit in it and
Mhm.
passing it through that way.
Sure.
So yeah, that's gears.
That's great. Thank you.
Yours has got a front neck, which is a little bit different than that one there. So
Yeah. I was going to ask, what can you do if you do get an older bike and how to look after your chain properly apart from greasing it?
yeah,
And especially if the gears don't go up and down properly.
if the gears don't go up and down properly, I would want to know like why they don't go up and down because I mean I remember like I used to work at Halfords when I was at uni and people would just go in and be like the gears on bikes like really work. And I'm like yeah they should work and they're like well mine's never worked like I've never had a bike with gears that work and I'm like they should work like they're not just like something there for show like they should work. So I would try and like find out why they're not working. Sometimes it could be that like the cables are corroded.
Right.
So when you're trying to turn this, there's just too much friction.
Mm-hmm.
Because unlike brakes, cables need to kind of glide, so friction makes the gear systems bad. Might be a case of new cables, might be a case of these are just seized up because they made it metal, these also corrode over time.
Yeah.
Or there's lots of little joints that we pivots here. I'll just grab them just. They'll wear out over time.
Yeah.
So when you twist your shifter, because there's so much play in it,
Mhm.
the mech can't actually push the chain across because it will just kind of flop about a bit.
Okay. Well, on one of my bikes, it is actually this one. I forgot to kick it on the bike, so it actually goes into the gear
So
again.
probably the mech is seized. You could try a new cable, but I think the mech itself is seized because on this, when you shift down, what you're doing is you're taking the cable tension away,
Yeah.
and there's a spring in here that should default to pushing this back across.
Yeah.
But if the cable tension's off and the spring's not pulling it back across, the spring's probably seized. So again, you could try like unseize it with WD-40 or something like that. But
I think that was tried, and the guy said that it's too expensive for what's the bike worth, so I just have to keep kicking it.
yeah, just kind of keep knocking it across. Yeah, you could do. I mean, these don't need to be like super dear. I mean, the bike shop might be saying this is too expensive because they're adding on their labour on top of it. So the
Mhm.
part
Oh,
itself
it's
might be
recycle
like.
bike.
Yeah, they
They're
don't add on
pretty
with
good. No, it's,
Um,
it's a 24-year-old bike. So.
Oh, fair enough. So yeah, maybe yeah.
As you said, you can buy the mech itself, the front mech, for about £5 or £10 on
Mhm.
eBay.
Yeah.
I've got a few of them, but that's where I made the mistake then about the drivetrain systems and how what doesn't go with what
Yeah,
does.
I know there's a lot of like compatibility issues with it. So the front mech, although it looks physically different, the
Yeah.
idea is the same as the rear one. You've still got a high and a low screw, which
Mm.
still function in the same way.
No, which
So
one?
these two wee screws
Oh,
here
these
on
two.
yours,
Oh,
yeah,
right,
are the
okay.
high and low ones,
Right, okay.
and on the back as well. So
Yeah, got it.
again, they just control how far this can move in on the low side,
Yeah,
how far out it can move on the high side,
okay,
and then the cable tension just fine tunes the sprockets on
okay.
it. So yeah, so the low is alright. Move up to the middle one. It's a wee bit of rubbing, but you can like adjust that by just kind of clipping back,
Mm.
and then up to the high on this one. Yeah.
I think this one is probably okay on this road, I think. Yeah.
With this one, so how like we've got on the rear, we've got like a mech hanger that
Mm.
needs to be aligned. On this, all we need to do is make sure that this cage is aligned with the chain rings. And we do that.
So it's
by-
not kind of rubbing or something.
Yeah, so like basically we need this line here to
Mm.
be on the same line
Oh,
as
okay,
the chain
parallel.
ring. Yeah,
Mm.
we need it to just all be in parallel. Yeah. If it's not, all we need to do is like loosen the bolt. of
These
the-
ones, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
loosen that, rotate it
Mm-hmm.
till it is, and then the height of it. So it that's quite a big gap, but it works okay because of like how the tolerances on like a 7-8 speed system. If this was like say an 11 speed road bike or something like that, the gap between the big sprocket and or the big chainring, sorry, and the inside of this needs to be like 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters at most. Otherwise, it's probably too high, or if it's too low, the mech will probably strike the big chainring before it shifts up. 2 millimeters is maybe like quite hard to judge by eye.
Yeah.
So what I just do is just get a 2 mil Allen key. Just use that as like a gauge. So if you shift up, you know, you could just like put that in and see how much of a gap you've got between there and there. If 2 millimeters just fits in, then you know you're pretty good.
Well, it's more than that.
Yours is huge, but it doesn't really
Huge,
matter on
yeah.
this because it's just because of how much
Space it has
system,
anyway.
yeah, it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
so just yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
pretty much it works, so don't change it.
What kind of oil would you spray your chain with?
So there's kind of broken into like two camps. You've got like wet lube and dry lube. They're both liquid.
Yeah.
It's more to do with the conditions that you're riding in. So dry lube they recommend for riding in dry conditions because it's not as thick.
No, go for the second one.
And then wet lube is for like if you're riding most of the time in Scotland, it's a thicker stuff. It should
So
stick on the chain.
What is it called then?
Just any brands. Muck Off is like a big chain
Okay.
lube
Yeah,
manufacturers.
yeah.
Muck Off, they do a wet lube. Finish Line will do their own version of wet lube. White Lightning do their own
And
one as well.
Halfords would sell that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll even have like their own brand as well.
Okay.
Just it might just be called Cycle Oil in there, which is probably just defaulted to wet lube or something they've got.
Okay.
Yeah, just like that. I usually put it kind of on that side. Just back pedal the bike. Less is more. You don't want to put too much on because it will just act like a magnet for dirt and
Dirt.
grime and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and it'll just turn into like a paste and wear out the chain and the rest of the drivetrain quick
Okay.
time. Yeah, just a wee bit of that on it, and then give it a wee back pedal with a rag if you maybe put too much on. Clean it off if you need to before reapplying new stuff. Don't need to buy anything fancy to clean it. Like again, Park Tool, Pedros, bike manufacturers will all want to sell you these like little clip-on chain cleaners. I find that they just burst and they just put the stuff all over the floor. It's, and you never see like if you look at a service centre like a world tour, the guys are never like the pro mechanics are never out with a chain cleaner. They've got like a bucket and a paintbrush and they just paint on degreaser and then
Yeah.
spray it off again. Nobody's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
fanning about
absolutely.
with a little machine that clips on it. Aye,
Aye.
yeah, and it goes through like all these little rollers and brushes. Like they're not fanning about with that. They just have a plastic tub and a paintbrush and they just paint it on. That's it, and then hose it off.
And when do you know you have to replace a chain? What's the
Ah,
clear sign?
okay.
For me, this is really rusty, but it still works.
It's rusty,
so
yeah, it's
when do you
rusty,
know?
Not so much an issue. You can buy a tool which will measure chain wear. You can buy. I've got one here somewhere. Again, there's like heaps of different shapes and sizes and all sorts. There's this one. It's kind of the right one. It's kind of worn out, but it gives you like a limit on here. So there's like little numbers that go from 0,
Yeah, I can see
2.5,
25,
0.5, 0.75 and then 1. That's like percentages, so like 0.25 is like 25%, 0.5 is 50% and so on. How it works is there's two little pins and all this does is it measures how elongated the chain is.
Is it because it stretches over
Yeah.
time?
It stretches. What happens is like these little rollers wear out
Yeah.
and then that's how you can pull it. The actual metal of the side links or the plates don't stretch. These
No.
little rollers wear out.
What, these ones in there?
Yeah, these see these like little kind of silver bits here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They like on the inside wear out,
Mm-hmm.
so the hole enlarges, and that's how the chain sort of seems to grow. And
So it
then-
gets floppy.
yeah, pretty much. If you took a chain like that's 114 lengths long, say, just use that arbitrary number, right? And it's brand new, and you have one that's been on a bike
Yeah,
for 12
it's
months,
gonna be-
it's going to measure longer,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
though it's got the same number of lengths, because the hole inside these little rollers has been enlarging.
Yeah.
So how these work is pop it in somewhere. What I do is put a hand on the wheel and pull the wheel that way whilst pushing the pedal down the way, because it then puts this foot under tension. Drop it in somewhere where it won't get caught here. There we go. And then just push it round and see what number we've got through the wee window. So this one, what's kind of just gone past 0.75, or it's maybe even on 0.75. So that chain going by this tool is 75% worn out. When it gets to 1, I would replace this one at 1. When your one gets to like 0.5 or 0.75, I'd replace it because manufacturers say that with more gears you would replace the chain earlier.
Ah,
And
right, okay.
These are designed to work with like all speeds of chain. So
Mhm.
if you go on, like, again, this is made by Parktool, if you go on their website, it'll probably say if using this chain on a 7-speed bike, replace it 1. If using this chain on a 11-speed bike, replace it 0.5.
Mhm.
It'll just vary depending on the tool and the manufacturer.
Sure.
That's one option. The other shape is
I've got the wee bar. That's one I've got.
aye, there's like these little ones where it's just more of like a go no go. So these don't really measure like
Wow.
stages of wear. It's just either it's worn out or it's not. It just kind of goes on and you press it in.
Mhm.
So if it drops all the way
Pretty
in,
good, they don't have to practice
it's worn, but it doesn't fit all the way in. So I'm saying these ones don't like show you like how
The extent
worn.
of it,
Yeah,
they just tell you it's out.
yeah, it's just like either it's worn out or it's not.
Yeah.
If that goes on and then like it rattles about, you know, it's like really past the point of it. And some chains I've even seen that they're so worn that this then doesn't fit on because it's elongated so much
Yeah.
that it actually measures like a new chain.
Mhm.
But if you took it off, you could like bend the chain sideways like that. It's so worn out. Other way is get a ruler. The pitch of this is 1 inch, so from that one 2 pins up should be 1 inch when it's new. If you measure like 12 inches and it says like 12 3/8, it's kind of like that's worn out, so get a new one.
Okay.
But many people have like a machine ruler to measure that. Just buy one of these for like £4 in Halfords or something. Rather than sitting there like scoping out. So aye, that's it. This you should generally couple of chains to a cassette, and then a new cassette would be needed, and these should last the longest because they're bigger. And the small chain rings typically die first, and then the rest of them sort of die in succession. So this wears out, but these also wear out eventually.
Sure.
From experience in bike shops, women tend to wear out the shifting ramps rather than the actual sprockets themselves. Women seem better at just changing gear. Men will just sit and push away in a big gear and just kill like one sprocket. Women will just wear out like the little ramps between the sprockets. So if you replace the chain and then you're trying to judge if the cassette's worn out, generally I put it in like the small sprockets and like push on it, and if the gears kind of jump, it's probably that's worn out. But if you're not getting that, and if you're just changing between the sprockets and it's jumping, it's probably worn out as well, but it's a different type of wear. That was just 10 years working in the bike shop. Men just sit in one gear going up a hill and just keep
Forcing it.
just force it along.
So that's one out. Would that come as the back tire? That sounds probably pretty stupid because that
No,
comes
this
separately.
bit's replaceable. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's replaceable separate to the wheel and all that.
Alright, okay.
That one will just unscrew. Your one will slide off.
Okay, cool.
And then these will wear out as well, but not at the same rate as anything else because the wear's spread over a much larger area here. These last longer. So the small one typically wears out first because it's smaller.
As I take it, so the pointy end of the cogs up here, that's what starts clicking or jumping, you said, is that because it's missing a link, it's sliding or something? You know it's
so
worn?
If you've put a new chain on here, the pitch of the chain won't match the pitch of these teeth anymore. So
Right, because it's
distance-
welded to the old
yeah,
one.
Yeah, pretty much. So this will be the pitch of the chain will be smaller, it'll be 1 inch, and this might be like 1.1 inches. So the gap won't be the same, and the chain will be trying to jump over to the next tooth across. On the front, it just generally doesn't shift up. You'll turn it, and it'll just kind of jump and splutter away, but it just won't work.
But surely these ones won't move. They only rub off a little bit, so they wouldn't get their distance differently.
It kind of wears out from this edge here
Yeah,
because the chain, as you're pedaling along, the chain's applying pressure to this surface here.
yeah,
So that little bit eventually wears out, and the tooth just gets thinner and thinner and thinner.
yeah. The one where it sticks onto, so
Yeah.
that just slides off, but it's not the distance of
It's
it
not the
itself.
distance
No.
in the section.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
That's brilliant, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. That was
4 minutes.
That was really helpful, obviously, what I've been done.
Cool.
I just couldn't believe how quick it was to change that on my bike. We spent like 2 hours on it, you done it in less than like 5 minutes, changing that 10